Guess who's back? Back again. Shady's back. Tell a friend. Guess who's back? 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 Guess who's back?
What is up, Bucks fans? Welcome back to Buck Life, the Milwaukee Bucks fan podcast made by hardcore Milwaukee Bucks fans for hardcore Milwaukee Bucks fans. Welcome back. It's been a while, but we're happy to be back. I'm Jacob, of course, always with my co-host Chuck. How we doing tonight, Chuck?
Not too bad, Ben. You know, I think it's been about a year. I'd have to look up at the date, but about a year since we recorded this. I went to Florida for the winter. You were working. Your jobs were kind of keeping you busy there, and now we're hopefully settled down and back to a regular schedule. You know, that's my hopes here.
Yeah, we thank you if we're still in your podcast feed. Expect to see a lot more of us as we plan on hopefully doing about a weekly show or so.
Yeah, at least every other week. But you know, especially if the Bucks have the kind of season we're hoping and exciting, we'll keep it up weekly.
Absolutely. Joining us today is an old friend of the show, the Grand Admiral himself. Dan, how are you today?
I'm doing all right. It's been a tough day for Wisconsin sports fans, but now we've just got to focus on the Bucks.
Yeah, for what he's referring to is we are recording this just after the Packers lost to the Minnesota Vikings, which is not the bad part of the day. It's Aaron Rodgers and his broken collarbone. So anyone who's a Bucks and Packers fan, we are certainly looking forward to hopefully the Bucks taking our mind off of this sorrow on Wednesday.
Yeah, let's think positively here. Why don't we just jump right into it? Let's talk about the Bucks offseason, and really not much of an offseason for them as far as additions and subtractions are concerned. Really, we had, first off, our new general manager, John Horst, our salary cap expert, in not at all sarcastic quotation marks there, was named the general manager after kind of a weird, murky situation. Dan, why don't you just give us a recap of how that all went down?
Well, it was very odd. I mean, when we hired, first of all, you have to go back to last year when the Bucks had been without an assistant GM for a season after getting rid of David Morway. And then there was just no assistant GM. Then we needed to bring somebody in. We brought in Justin Zanuck from the Utah Jazz. And in order for it not to be a lateral move, we kind of gave him a little promotion, whereas his contract called for, after John Hammond's contract expired, Justin Zanuck was going to be paid whatever the GM would be paid. So either he's going to be the GM himself, or he would be paid like he was. So that kind of gave him a little GM in waiting status, which is what was reported by many trustworthy sources. So that was already the plan.
That was the
theory.
original plan, I was
Yes.
going to say. And I think a lot of people were kind of on board with that plan because
I was.
the idea that he kind of helped build what Utah kind of built out there with Rudy Gobert and Gordon Hayward and just having a nice young core. It looked like things were on the right track, and then something happened.
I don't know what exactly happened. I heard lots of great things about Justin Zanuck from the time that we were talking about bringing him in from Utah, all the way up until the time where we were still expecting him to be the next GM. Now, John Hammond had one more year on his contract, and there was a possibility that he would serve out that remaining year as our GM. I had wanted us to just move on and say, let's just, forget it. He's going to be gone. We know he's not coming back. Let's just give the reins to Justin Zanuck now. I don't know what he needs to wait for or learn from John Hammond. Let's just go. Well, okay. Then John Hammond was going to be here for another year. Then all of a sudden, he was a candidate for the president of basketball operations position with the Orlando Magic. Now, he did not get it. Who got it was Jeff Weltman, who had been in Toronto as their number 2 basketball operations guy under Masai Ujiri, but who used to be John Hammond's number 2 here in Milwaukee before taking that job. Jeff Weltman becomes the president of basketball operations, and all of a sudden, John Hammond wants to go talk to him about being the Orlando Magic GM. The Bucks say yes. It's a done deal. Hammond is now a GM, but really a demotion from what he was with the Bucks, because Weltman's running that show.
I don't think there were many people shedding tears at that point. I remember me and Chuck were actually kind of excited for the Zanuck era to begin, if I recall.
Yeah, absolutely.
As was I.
I think we all were, because we had this idea that Zanuck was a young guy. He's going to go more analytical, new age thinking. What are we going to do? Not these same old signing broken down veterans to the MLE, like the Drew Goodins and the Corey Maggettis. Yeah. So, it was kind of exciting to think what could have been. And I was shocked when the GM search process went on for as long as it did. It was kind of one of those things where you thought, okay, they're going to interview a couple guys, just pay them lip service, and then Zanuck's going to be the guy. And then it kept going and going and going.
I'm surprised it's not still going.
And for a minute. All the way up until the day they announced Horst, he wasn't even a candidate as far as we knew until the 11th hour.
He was not originally a candidate. And also keep in mind that John Horst, we've learned this retroactively, because no one had really heard of John Horst outside of the organization. I spoke to a number, once his name emerged in the process, which was basically right when he got hired, I spoke to a number of people in local and national media, and they also had no dealings with John Horst. I've seen his name like on the on the Bucks staff list, but I and other and people in the media have dealt with various people in the Bucks organization. No one that I talked to has talked to this guy.
That's what was so crazy to me. Like, there's people that I know that are really, really in tune with what's going on over at the Bucks there, and there's people that, again, they never even heard the name. It was just odd.
Well, he basically got into the NBA through John Hammond, and was kind of John Hammond's aide de camp or administrative assistant, if you want to say. I mean, he's very experienced in the NBA. He knows a lot. I think I'm trying to be optimistic about Horst. I think he could be something good. I don't care that he's that young.
If anything, to me, being young is a plus.
Yeah,
it's just
that'll be good. He just came out of nowhere.
It was weird the way it went down, and I think it's not the first time this new ownership group has had kind of a weird search for, whether it's a coach or a GM now. They've kind of, it's just weird.
It's part of the problem with having three owners. What brought this about is they couldn't come to a consensus all of a sudden on Justin Zanuck. That was the plan, but then all of a sudden, well, maybe not. Maybe we should open it up for something. And then when you open it up, then all of a sudden we still couldn't come to a consensus on what to do. So, well, we have to compromise and pick somebody that we can all handle. So John Horst apparently was the compromise candidate. That's never a good thing. I worry about that when I have always worried about it, even when it was just two, when it was Lazary and Edens to start with, and now with three owners. If you can't decide on something unless all three of you are on board, that really limits your options, and this is one reason why there was a significant article written about the Bucks ownership process, or ownership and GM search process just being kind of a joke in the NBA.
It's a bad look, is what it is, and I'm glad you brought that up, because it's something I think we shouldn't just brush it off to the side. We remember hearing that they were going to have a 2/3 vote deal as far as what decisions were going to be made. That doesn't appear to be the case. Overall, it's hard to get answers from anybody, because it seems like maybe even in that building they don't know what the hell is going on within that organization. You already had a lot of speculation previously that Jason Kidd was really the one running the show. I think given the choice of general manager, I think it's pretty fair to speculate that might be the case. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, John Horst is the lowest paid general manager. A lot of people, I asked for opinion-wise, a lot of people think he's just a puppet. Jason Kidd's the puppet master. So it's just not a good look for this ownership. And I think the honeymoon period's really kind of starting to fade with these guys now that we're, 4 years in?
Yeah, I would agree. I think they're going to get some of that goodwill back next year when we're in that brand new arena. We're going to kind of overlook some of that just because of what's going up in downtown Milwaukee. But from a management standpoint, certainly things are not being done, and they're not being done the way business has been done in the past. Which there's a big difference because business as usual under Herb Kohl obviously wasn't working or well either. But there's a big difference between changing things just for the sake of changing things and changing things for the better. And I feel like some of the things we're changing, it's just different. It's not better.
Well, and the NBA specifically tries to have any new ownership of a team be just one person to avoid situations like this. It really came to a head with the Atlanta Hawks ownership group, the Spirit Group. That was a big problem. They couldn't agree. They actually wound up having to go to court over the Joe Johnson contract back in the 2005 offseason. That was when the NBA said, okay, we're done with these ownership groups. One owner, it's either going to be one person that owns the team, or if it's a group, one person has all of the decision making, and that's it. They're going to decide everything. Well, somehow Mark Lazary and Wes Edens talked the NBA into allowing their ownership structure, and then on top of that, then they wound up bringing in another majority owner in Jamie Dinan. And this is a major problem when you have to, instead of ruling as a triumvirate and having that, hey, two people are going to vote for something and that's what we're going to do. Well, if you just have it where you have to all have a consensus on something, it's going to be a lot of paralysis by analysis. And instead of one meddling owner, which many owners meddle, you're going to have three meddling owners, but they can't decide exactly how to meddle.
Well, that's why we have Dan on the show, because he remembers the litigation about the Joe Johnson contract in 2005.
That's right.
I think a lot of people probably forgot about.
Yeah, you say that and it's like, yeah, I vaguely remember that happened, but that's about it. I don't remember any details or this or that. But yeah, I feel like we're getting different just to be different, and it's not necessarily better. I feel like Horst wasn't anyone's top pick. He was probably their third or fourth pick on the list once they settled down, but it was the one they could agree on. So now we didn't get anyone's first pick. We got everyone's third pick or whatever the case, wherever that number is. But it's like, if Zanuck was like number one, and number two on all three of their lists, or wherever he was, and then all of a sudden we settle for a guy that's lower on everyone's list than Zanuck, but they all just could agree on it at least.
This is like when you're with a group of people trying to decide what movie to go see or what restaurant to go to, and you're like, well, I'd like to go to this nice restaurant. Well, no, I don't want to go there. I want to go to this nice restaurant. Well, no, I would like to go there. I don't want to go to this. Well,
you settle on Taco Bell.
Yeah, you wind up being at Taco Bell
because everybody kind of likes.
Yeah, we're like, well, I guess you know what? Fine, let's just go to Taco Bell.
And hopefully Horst is better than Taco Bell.
John Horst, the Taco Bell GM.
Yeah, so yeah, so
I love Taco Bell, and I'm optimistic about John Horst.
I am not optimistic on John Horst, but I am optimistic on Taco Bell. Let's talk about what we actually did in the off season. We almost went into the draft with no general manager, but they finally got that settled just beforehand. We ended up picking 6'10" power forward DJ Wilson from Michigan, a junior, who's a kind of a combo forward, athletic, long, very Milwaukee Bucks DNA type, decent shooter, but similar to another guy in the past that we took in the first round, Joe Alexander. He only really had one good college year. Or one good year of college basketball. Then we went with Sterling Brown, a 6'6" swingman from South Carolina. Really, hopefully, could be a 3-and-D type player. I was not upset with that pick. And thanks to Alex Lazary, who apparently is a scout now, whatever.
Oh my gosh.
He was nice enough to accidentally tweet a picture of the Bucks draft board so we could see where the Bucks saw these guys. And DJ Wilson, who I saw in a lot of mocks going in the kind of mid-20s or so, was our 9th rated player in the draft. So that was kind of a shocker, considering that he definitely wasn't consensus. But I also remember hearing that the Bucks tried to move up in the draft. I would have to imagine for Malik Monk, who they had slotted as 6th overall on their draft board. But thoughts on the draft?
Well, since you mentioned that he was the 9th rated player on the Bucks draft board, the last time that we drafted the 9th rated player on our draft board was John Henson. I'm just throwing that out there. That happened. That was a big thing.
Why you got to do that?
We
man?
got
Why you
John
gotta be
Henson
like
with that pick, and that was like, oh yeah. Well, as it turns out, we had John Henson rated number 9 in this draft. So the fact that we were able to get him a couple spots lower, great. So apparently DJ Wilson also 9. Hopefully better results. It's got to be better results, right?
Yeah, it's one of those things where we were picking at, it's hard to be too upset with who you're picking, because you're not expecting to get a first-year All-Star, Rookie of the Year candidate when you're picking in the middle of the first round.
We did pick Giannis in the middle of the first round.
Yes.
You never know.
Yes, but Giannis wasn't really, he wasn't Giannis his rookie year even. He wasn't a Rookie of the Year contender, his rookie year. So yes, you could get a future potential MVP candidate at that point, but DJ Wilson doesn't have the measurables of Giannis or the future growth and potential of Giannis. So I think we can not really tease with that sort of comparison. I think that's foolish, obviously, and Jake knows that.
But we all loved that Giannis pick at the time.
We absolutely
did.
That
draft together, and we loved that pick.
When you're picking in the middle of the round, you have to, if you're going to take a shot, shoot for the moon. Take the highest potential upside. If Giannis never develops into anything, who cares? It was the middle of the first round. You got to take that chance. So where we're picking again, there was almost no one they could have picked that I would have been furious about. No one they could have picked that I would be super excited about. I expect to get just a guy there if he can be a back end of the rotation, or be a good offense off the bench, a defensive specialist, whatever he develops into. If he contributes, great. If he makes an all-star game, fantastic pick. If he never really does anything, it is what it is. I'm not too excited or too upset about any of it.
Same for me.
I think they want him to be a stretch 4 long term. I kind of like the comparison to maybe a more athletic Ersan Ilyasova type that can hit some threes, rebound for you. And again, if he can get that in the middle of the first round, that's not a terrible pick. I will say he looks a little bit lost from what we've seen in the preseason. A little bit soft too, so might need to add some weight. I do like that he wears sexy short shorts though. And the big floppy sideshow bob hair. I think every good team needs to have one goofy looking guy that can ball. So hopefully that can be him.
Also, some of the female participants in the Bucks fan squad are a big fan of the short shorts, so they like that.
What do they call the fan squad now? The Cream?
Oh, I don't know. Yes, the Cream City Clash.
Still the Cream City Clash? I didn't know if we were on our 5th name change in 8, 9 years, whatever it's been.
You can see Dan in the Cream City Clash if you watch any of the Bucks home games this year, because he makes like 12 appearances per game. But then, again, we talk about Sterling Brown, 6'6", again, second round pick and mid-second round pick. So
solid.
Yeah, you hope to just get a solid bench contributor there, and anything more than that, it's gravy.
You're not going to get a Malcolm Brogdon in the second round every year.
Right.
So if you get anything out of a second round pick, it's fine. We've had some decent second round picks in our history. Bamute, Ersan, Brogdon, obviously the most recent example. So
Michael Redd.
Yeah, Michael Redd. Yeah, we've had some good second round picks. So if we get anything out of Sterling Brown and he looked like he belongs on an NBA court, in the preseason games I watched, I unfortunately didn't get to watch all the games, but what I did see, he looked like he at least belongs as a bench guy. I don't think he's ready to start or anything, but he looks like he belongs with the NBA.
He'll never start in the NBA. He's going to have a solid career in the NBA coming off the bench, and he belongs, and that's great.
I see a lot of comparisons to Danny Green, who played at North Carolina and became a really good player for the San Antonio Spurs, albeit maybe one that's a little overpaid right now, so hopefully we never do that with Sterling. But again, nice 3-and-D guy potentially down the road. As far as additions and subtractions to the roster, really we lost Michael Beasley to New York. God bless his soul.
No loss
lost
there.
His damn mind.
No loss
from some of the interviews I've seen. And I guess the other kind of big move of the offseason was re-signing Tony Snell, who, again, was a restricted free agent that it seems to me that we may have jumped the gun in re-signing, considering some of the deals that were handed out to similar type players. But he signs for a 4-year, $46 million contract, 44 of which is guaranteed. I'm not sure where that extra $2 million kind of gets made out. Dan
Well,
might have something
I
there.
believe it's not that it's not guaranteed. It's bonuses, likely bonuses and unlikely bonuses. And right now, some of those things would be classified as unlikely bonuses. But 44 of it's guaranteed because the other $2 million is in bonuses.
Yeah, so I thought it was a little overpay. Going into the offseason, I thought Tony Snell was a great fit on this team. He obviously was a great contributor last year, and I would have liked to keep him back, but I kind of had my personal target of a high range at about 4 years and $40 million. That said, the salary cap is going up every year. 2-3 years from now, on the back end of that contract, it's not going to look as crazy as it looks now. So we at least didn't. I feel like we didn't drastically overpay, but I do agree we probably overpaid, especially with the contracts that were handed out after Tony Snell. It wasn't quite as much crazy money this offseason. Some off seasons just crazy
Last year was
contracts handed
insane.
out. And this year was a little more mild. So in hindsight, yeah, we probably jumped the gun, overpaid a little bit. But it's not one of those ones where we gave him 4 years, 46, and we probably could have got him for 4 years, $24 million or anything like that. It's a little overpay. And if he does what he's done last year, he'll earn his contract.
By the way, this is today the 1-year anniversary of trading Michael Carter-Williams for Tony Snell. That
Wow.
1 year ago today.
1 year ago today.
Happy anniversary.
Yeah, happy
Happy
anniversary.
anniversary.
That was a great trade,
Yes.
both at the time and in hindsight,
Yes.
even better. At the time, I was just happy to be rid of Michael Carter-Williams, and if we got anything out of Tony Snell, I was going to be happy.
Sure.
And it turned out really well for us.
Yeah, I was totally fine with that trade. I would have gone more of, hey, let's get a 2 second-round picks and hope one of those guys hits. I probably would have done that. Tony Snell has exceeded my expectations. He is a great fit for the team right now. That being said, I still am always weary of paying that type of player before you're a contender. This is the type of player that you go out and get once you become a title contender. You add that player then. He's borderline. He's young enough that he kind of fits with the Middleton, Giannis. I guess that's our core. I don't know. But
Who knows? We don't even know Thon's age.
right,
so
we
who
don't know
knows?
Thon's age. But so Tony Snell is young enough. He's just coming off his rookie scale contract. He was a little older of a rookie. But in today's NBA, he's a great fit. He's a 3-and-D wing with length, and he can play the 2 and the 3. He can defend. And I don't know. He's not overpaid. It's just that I think you don't even give out those kind of contracts to your complementary players until you get your star players in order.
Well, and I was just gonna say too, it seems like something that we hear almost every Bucks offseason. If it's one or two of these guys we seem to sign where it's like, maybe we overpaid a little bit, but it's not that big a deal. When you start to add them all up, okay, these $11 million type players, and you're getting the production that you get out of a Tony Snell, Matthew Dellavedova, a Teletovic, a Henson, a Plumlee. Dear God, I almost forgot about him. I mean, perhaps
Somehow we were able to move on from that immediately.
That was a miracle.
It was a miracle, but sometimes you can just take advantage of a very foolish owner or GM, and Michael Jordan does own an NBA team and is very foolish when it comes to basketball.
Kemba Walker, come on down. But as I was saying though, like you start to add these up, and now, yes, on the surface he makes $11.5 million a year, or per year. No, that's not going to kill you. But when you add that in with Dellavedova's 9.5, or Teletovic's 10, and John Hens's 11, that is a huge, huge chunk of your cap space that you're not really getting much production of. That I think you can get a replacement player around the league minimum that could give you something close to similar, and you'll have that space available. Because let's face it, Giannis now, we're into his new contract. we're coming up on the end of Middleton's contract. What are we going to put around Giannis?
Right, and when you are committing this kind of money to that type of player, you really need to do that after you get the other players in order. What you do you just keep trying to find another Tony Snell type player when he's on the rookie scale contract.
All right, because case in point, what do we have to give up to get Tony Snell?
Michael
Absolutely
Carter
nothing.
Williams, absolutely nothing, like you said.
You just got to have good scouts, I guess.
So you keep doing that, and that's why it's important to have to keep your draft picks so that you can try to draft a Tony Snell type player and have them cheap for 4 years if it's a first round pick, or cheap for 2 or 3 years if it's a second round. That's what you keep doing. That's what you surround your Giannis type player with. The problem is we need the second best player to Giannis. It can't be Chris Middleton. If Chris Middleton is our second best player, and I love Chris Middleton, I don't care how good Giannis is, and I think he's a minimum top 10 player, maybe top 5. It's not going to be enough. If we want to win a title, there needs to be more.
Yeah, the only way you win a title with Chris Middleton being your second best player is if your third, fourth, and fifth best players are basically the same level as Chris Middleton. And we don't have
kind of
that.
like the Detroit.
Yeah, Detroit
back
when
then.
they won the title in 2000, the early 2000s.
2003.
Yeah, I was gonna say 3, but I wasn't.
Well, the 03,
100%.
04 season.
Yeah, so yes, if you have a superstar level and then 4 all-star level, because Chris Middleton's he's not an all-star level guy, but he's just on the fringe where if he had if he had a really good year, he could be an all-star.
Yeah.
So if you have that,
I think Chris Middleton is an all-star caliber player, and he might make it this year.
yeah, you're probably right that he's an all-star caliber player who hasn't made it.
Yep.
So yeah, if you can win a title with Chris Middleton as your second guy, if 3, 4, and 5 are basically interchangeable. If you have 4 guys that are like, I don't know who my second best guy is. They're all 4 really good.
That's such
but
a rarity.
we don't exactly. Detroit's really about the only example of
They're an outlier
of a team winning with that formula. So we need a second, maybe not an MVP caliber like Giannis, but you need a second perennial all-star. And ideally 2 guys who are going to be locks to make the All-Star game almost every single year.
And here's the way that you get those kind of players, especially in our market. You really have to unearth them in the draft, which is how we got Giannis. I mean, it didn't end well for the Pacers with Paul George, but that's how they got him. You just keep trying to find these guys in the draft. One. The second option is that you pay a free agent to come in. Now, maybe we're at the point, we've got a new arena, we've got state-of-the-art facilities now. Players actually might want to come here to play with Giannis, and having Middleton here helps too. We might be to the point that we could get that other player that we need with Giannis and Middleton through free agency. That might be an option for us now, but we will have to break the bank for that, and you can't break the bank for a player like that and surround them with enough complementary players if now you're paying a player like Tony Snell what we just paid him. So that is a big concern for me.
Yeah, we don't have cap space to sign a max free agent right now. I have less issue with Tony Snell personally, and I think we'd all than John Henson.
Yeah.
You're right that it adds up. And if we didn't have the John Hensons and we hadn't given out Miles Plumlee, and some of the other players are going to be thankfully expiring sooner than later, but we can't every offseason give out a 4-year, $10 to $12 million per year contract.
That's why we're almost at the luxury tax threshold, which is ridiculous for the caliber of team that we have.
It's hamstringing us on the off chance that some MVP, perennial all-star level player decides, you know what, going and pairing up with Giannis in Milwaukee isn't the worst case. They've got a new arena, low cost of living in Wisconsin. They're a young up-and-coming team. Maybe that's where I want to go. But we can't financially do it in the situation we are now. So, and we're going to be, Giannis alone is going to make us good enough that our chances of getting that player in the draft are not going to be there. So, what are our odds of being any better than 3 to 5 seed in the East for the next 10 years?
And this is what I mean. You don't. I think Tony Snell is great. He's a great fit. I really like the way he plays. You don't let a player like that prevent you from getting the type of player that we need to be a title contender. You get that player, that other player, and then you try to find the Tony Snell, hopefully for cheap.
Well, I think one of the guys that we assumed was going to be one of those game-changing type players was Jabari Parker, and it's a good transition because I need to talk about Jabari, and it's kind of giving me nightmares. We're getting closer and closer to the deadline to where he could sign an extension. If he does not, he's going to be a restricted free agent, meaning that he can sign an offer sheet with another team that we'll then have the opportunity to match, or he could sign a one-year qualifying offer with the Bucks. We did confirm that his cap hold going into the next season will be just over $20 million. This is terrifying me because I never really thought Jabari was a fit with Giannis. Even if without the injuries,
He's not
playing a factor. I think that that's still questionable that is going to be a duo that could bring you titles. Now you add in the two ACLs. I'm at the point where I'd take almost any deal for Jabari Parker in a trade just because it takes away the option from this ownership to re-sign him. Because I think if you re-sign Jabari Parker, that's our Brandon Roy, our Greg Oden, our just injury waiting to happen. And if you sign a guy to huge money like that, that will take your chances of winning a title from very, very small to non-existent. And I can't. Jabari seems like a nice guy. I know people wanted him to be the thing in Milwaukee, and just up until maybe a year and a half ago, I think a lot of people still saw him as the face of the franchise. You have to be smart about it. You can't make a business decision based on Jabari being a nice guy.
No, you really can't. And it was, look, we were all excited about finally getting a top pick in a year where, look, there's a couple superstars in this draft, potential superstars. There's Andrew Wiggins and Joel Embiid. And by the way, I'm calling everybody that's named Joel now Joel because of Joel Anthony. My apologies. Joel Embiid. And Jabari Parker. I was never really a Jabari Parker enthusiast, but I did still feel like, well, he's at least going to be like a perennial all-star caliber player. That's what I thought. He really does not fit well with Giannis, and now the injury concerns. He did have an injury concern coming into the draft, even like he was hurt back in high school, I guess. Different injury.
I think it was an ankle.
Yeah, but nobody cared about that because he was fine his 1 year with Duke, but now he's had 2 ACL injuries and he has never fit well with Giannis. He's a terrible defender. I think he's an excellent offensive player, but again, he just is not really a great fit with Giannis. We were just talking about Tony Snell. We're probably going to be better this season than last season, in part because we're going to have a full season of Chris Middleton and Tony Snell on the wings, alongside Giannis at power forward, controlling the ball a lot on offense. That fits. Jabari Parker, not so much. So can we go forward with having Jabari Parker be that piece? I don't think so, and that's not even considering the health issues. So it's very much deflating for Bucks fans because we waited for so long to get that type of pick, to get that type of player, and to me it doesn't appear that it's going to work out. Maybe he can stick around as a bench player here, a good bench player, mind you, maybe. But as Jake said, there's a lot of talk like, well, Jabari wants to be here and he's this great quality guy, and he is. He's great. That's not enough. That's not enough. Not if we actually want to be a title contender.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, we all had concerns about his fit. We've talked about it every year. How will he fit since he's been on the team? And looking back at that draft that he was in, if you include Exum going 4th overall, you had 4 guys that were the consensus top 4, just riddled with injuries. What a shame for the NBA. Not just us as Bucks fans, but That's a lot of talent that has missed a lot of games in the last 3 years.
Well, and the one that has stayed healthy, Wiggins, has underperformed.
Yeah, absolutely. He's shown flashes of brilliance, but he's not, I know that was I think all of us wanted Wiggins with our pick, and obviously that choice was made for us when we got second and he went number 1 overall. It was never an option.
I
for
wanted
us.
Embiid until the navicular bone injury.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, okay, I'm with Wiggins now.
And I was on Embiid as well, except for the back and then the foot. We
The
had
back
all
was
those.
fine.
Yeah, and the back concerned me more than it concerned you,
Yeah.
just because of big guys with back problems, it can be a nagging thing.
Bogut.
And yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Bogut's an example of that. So it was one of those things where Wiggins was obviously never a choice, but I know Jake even had a Milwaukee Bucks Andrew Wiggins
I
jersey.
sold out hard for that guy.
Yeah.
So it's really a shame that draft played out the way it has 3 years later, because you have a guy who went up number 1 overall who hasn't lived up to the hype. He's still a good player, but not what you would hope. And then the next 3 guys have all just barely played at all. It's not good for fans around the league as a whole, because you need that constant influx of talent to keep the league exciting. And it's still an exciting league, don't get me wrong. One year of injuries is not going to ruin the league or anything, but it's kind of sad to think about as a whole big picture thing.
It really hurts because, as I mentioned, that draft was really seen as like there's going to be a number of superstars here at the top, and including Exum, which a lot of people forget about. I was a big Exum guy. I would have taken Exum number 2 at the time. Obviously, that wouldn't have worked out so well either, but I honest at this point, I'd rather have Exum on the roster than Jabari.
I was also on the Exum at number 2 bandwagon. I don't know if you recall back then, but I wanted him over. For me, it was always Wiggins was number 1, Embiid was number 2 until all the back and the foot, all those problems. And then I moved Exum to number 2, and Jabari was number 3 with Embiid at number 4 on the off chance. And I might have even had Embiid at 3 on draft day. I don't recall for sure.
I did. I still would have taken Embiid over Jabari.
But in hindsight, really, we were screwed with that number 2 pick just because of injuries. It's one of those things where there was no right pick for us, unfortunately.
By the way, our owners, if we had the number 1 pick, would have taken Jabari
I was
number
just
1.
going to say
That's not just the thing that they were saying. That was before the draft. Like before we even knew that we were getting the number 2 pick. Jabari was their guy.
I don't want to make this like, oh, let's pile on Jabari here, just because he does have a good skill set on offense, and I think he does have a role in the NBA. Ideally, I think he would be a tremendous 6th man because you could take him off the bench, you could simplify his role. He's going to be guarding lesser players because generally he's going to be going up against second string type wings, and you can say, look, here's Giannis is out of the game. Take the ball, get to the rack, score, be the gunner that we need. Give the offense a spark when we need it. The problem is you got egos involved. He's a number 2 overall pick. He was the face of the franchise allegedly. He's not going to want to take that role, and if he does take that role, he's going to have more suitors than just Milwaukee. So if his role is going to be just a bench gunner, he could go to any team in the league that he wanted to because they'll pay him what you would pay a bench gunner, number 1. And, there's obviously more glamorous places to live than Milwaukee.
And here's the issue. So Wiggins and Embiid have both received their extensions now. 5 years, $148 million. Wiggins, by the way, I still he hasn't had any of these injury problems really, and he's been good, but disappointing on defense, especially, which was supposed to be one of the things he'd come in right away and be a good defender. He wasn't. And then even last year, under Tom Thibodeau, of all people, still was pretty atrocious on defense. And if Thibodeau can't get you to play good defense, I don't know who can. So we'll see. This is a big year for Wiggins. Embiid, obviously, it's a big year for him to see if he can be healthy. I would not have done that extension yet. You wait for him to be a restricted free agent. Jabari, I do not think we'll be getting an extension. I'm recalling now that we did a podcast last year, and the very next day Giannis got his extension, but we knew that was coming. Jabari, we don't know. I don't think he'll get an extension. I think we'll wait to have him come back in either late January or sometime in February and see how he plays, and then we'll deal with him as a restricted free agent. But what do we do then? We saw this year, totally different scenario, but restricted free agent Tony Snell, we didn't let him go out as a restricted free agent and try to find an offer sheet to sign. We offered him a contract, and he signed it. Will we do that with Jabari, or will we let him go and sign an offer sheet? And will another team say, we've got a dearth of talent, we've got some cap space, let's roll the dice on Jabari and let's sign him to a max salary offer sheet?
Well, that takes one GM.
That's the thing with Jabari, though, is that he's asking for the max. So what's the worst case? He gets an offer sheet that is the max, and then we have to choose: do we give him the max or not? I think the risk versus reward for us is to absolutely just let him play out the contract and see what the offer sheet is, unless, if he comes back, and I don't know when he will ultimately see the court this year, but if he comes back and he lights the world on fire and he's somehow playing good defense and fitting well next to Giannis, okay, then we can decide if we want to give him an extension before the offer sheet.
No, we can't give him an extension. The deadline for that is
the qualifying offer, or exactly. So I think there's not really any risk in letting him play out his contract and go and see what he gets for an offer sheet, because there's no number I'm comfortable giving him without seeing him back healthy and not injured. And even then, the question's always going to be back in the back of your head: is he going to injure that leg or that knee again?
Right.
So it's just I don't think there's any number other than a really small number that he's not going to accept that I'm comfortable giving that extension.
The risk is that the risk when with a restricted free agent that you feel has superstar potential is that they're either going to take that qualifying offer, the 1-year deal, which when they haven't made that much money, because they think they can make a ton more money as an unrestricted free agent and then be able to go where they want. I don't see that being a risk with somebody like Jabari, who has injury issues. He's not going to do that. He's going to need to bank a bunch of money first. The real risk with him, I guess, if you see this as a risk, would be that he signs a 3-year offer sheet with the team. So then we'd only have him locked up for another 3 years past this year. Again, I'm comfortable with that risk. That's a better option to me. Like, if that's the worst that happens, that's a better option to me than giving him a max extension now, and then he either doesn't come back healthy or he comes back and he's not the Jabari that we were seeing. So this is
all the risk is, to me, it's not worth taking any risk with an extension, no matter what the number is. And you were talking about Jabari being a sixth man off the bench, and I always think of Jamal Crawford, who's the only guy to win Sixth Man of the Year 3 times. He's kind of that super bench guy, and I think that'd be a great role for Jabari if he could embrace it, if we can get him at the right contract. But, he's, in his mind, he's still going to be a superstar, and maybe he has that potential, but I don't think it's with us just because of the fit issue next to Giannis. Maybe another team he's a better fit. There are absolutely lots of teams where he's a better fit than next to Giannis.
So that's such a wild card for this season.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about the season. The outlook on where we're headed. For me, it's kind of a tough call because all they're talking about now is continuity and how we brought back almost the entire roster. One thing that to me that establishes is that there's no excuses. So if you get off to a poor start, you can't say, "Oh, we need to gel," because sorry.
I hate that phrase.
No, I see some parallels to the 2000-2001 Bucks team that they took Indiana, gave them a really tough series, and the following year they made their Eastern Conference
99-2000.
Finals.
That's the year you're talking
Yes,
about. Yep.
yes, sorry. There are some parallels there. I think that, yes, on the surface, we're ready to take that next step. We took Toronto to Game 6. When they were up 2-1 in that series, I still feel like they should have won.
Yeah, it was a hard-fought series, and,
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But the other thing to take into consideration here, especially in recent history, is that the Bucks generally, when they have expectations to be a good team or to have a good season, they tend to fall flat on their face and go back to their middling kind of late lotto type season. So are they ready to finally get that monkey off their back and say, you know what, people expect us to be really good this year and we're going to exceed those expectations?
Well, continuity is actually, as much as they talk about it, and it kind of makes you laugh a little bit, but it's true. It's actually a big thing. So many teams in the NBA make such significant changes every season that you do hear, well, just wait till we gel. Well, okay, fine, but 80% of the league is just waiting.
You're
going to
hear that a lot this year, given all the superstars that moved in the offseason.
Just wait till they gel. For sure. The Bucks, yes, as you said, don't have that excuse, but it is a big thing that you don't have to go through that period of time where you're adjusting. The Bucks have very little adjusting to do, so that will help them overall record-wise for this regular season. It should anyway. And compared to last season, Giannis, I think, is more comfortable being like, oh, hey, I'm a superstar. I am an MVP candidate. I think he's very comfortable with that. We also have, presumably, Chris Middleton for the entire year. So that's going to be a huge upgrade compared to last year. What we don't have, I guess, is we don't have somebody coming in that's new. A lot of these other teams have that.
Big shiny new toy.
Yeah,
Right.
we kind of are what we are from last year. It's not just the players gelling together, but no one has to learn a new system. Defensively, offensively,
we're
whatever.
Keeping the same horrendous defensive system that we've had.
Absolutely. You can expect lots of wide open threes given up by our defense.
Yeah.
Just like we have the last couple of years. That more of the same. So to me, like you said, we don't have that continuity problem. No, we shouldn't hear any excuses about needing time to gel. In theory, Middleton, Snell, Giannis right in there. The big questions to me are, is Brogdon going to keep doing what Brogdon did as a rookie? Is he going to improve? Is he going to regress? And Thon Maker, is he 37 years old? Is he 22 years old? Is he Greg Oden's grandpa? We don't really know where Thon Maker is in all this. Those are the two big question marks for me in terms of what are we going to do this year. Is Brogdon going to continue to do or improve? And is Thon Maker, how old is he? And what's he going to do?
Well, what do you lean more towards with both Brogdon and Snell as far as regression? Because I think that Snell is likely to have some regression, at least in his three-point percentage. He shot a phenomenal percentage last year. You'd think there'd be a little bit of regression. If it's not that much, that'll be great. Like even if he can shoot 37% plus from three, great. Brogdon as well. He very much exceeded my expectations on shooting threes last year. Maybe he regresses a little bit there. Does he regress in other areas? I don't know. I don't think so. I think Brogdon is probably going to perform like he did last year. I just don't think he's going to get any better, maybe ever.
Yeah, I think Brogdon is who he is, I think that's fine. He was kind of older.
That's fine.
He was older as a rookie. He's a competent NBA player. He deserves a spot on the roster. I don't know if he's long term, your best starter at point guard. Ideally, I think you upgrade that position. But if he's your worst starter, that's fine as well. And with Thon, or you talk about Tony Snell,
yeah.
I expect Tony Snell to regress a little bit. He kind of had a contract year or whatever, it's kind of, and maybe that was just him improving, but I tend to agree that he'll probably regress a little bit. But if he regresses only a little bit, he's still a good player for us.
I'm going to go with a couple names that haven't been mentioned yet. One of the key players this year, whether the Bucks are going to be successful or not, is going to be Greg Monroe. Because we saw in his first year with Milwaukee, he looked like a bad fit. They moved him to a bench role, and last year it was like night and day difference. He was playing good defense. He kind of played within himself, and he really embraced that sixth-man role. I start to worry that now that his contract is a full expiring deal, as in he has to play for another contract, is he going to embrace that team-type role, or is he going to go back to that old Greg Monroe where give me the ball, I'm going to score no matter what. As soon as I'm touching the ball, guess what? It's going in. That concerns me a little bit because we need to see the same Greg Monroe from last year. And the second thing is we have to get production from Dellavedova and Teletovic. These guys are brought in to space the floor. They both were below their career norms from three last year. And Teletovic especially offered us next to nothing given that he's not really a defender at all. I thought Dellavedova kind of got a bad rap for having a bad year last year, which Is he maybe a little bit overpaid? Sure, but if you look at his numbers, he really did give you just a solid year as a backup point guard. So if his shooting numbers come closer to his career norm, he's going to be a great asset coming off the bench. But I feel like, and John Henson's just a lost cause. He's not going to provide any team anything ever again because he's paid. And I'm a little worried that Snell might be that type of candidate too, just given that he has kind of an easygoing mindset, and now he's rich beyond his wildest
And
dreams.
we'll know in 2-3 months. We'll probably know right away whether
Sure.
Snell's going to mail it in like John Henson kind of did, or if he's going to keep busting his ass and being a valuable asset.
I'm not worried about Snell mailing it in like Henson does. That's not a concern of mine with him. I am concerned. I think there will be some slight regression there. I'm more concerned from some comments he's made, and part of why things did not work out that well for him with the Bulls, he always wanted to be more of an offensive option than was warranted, and he would turn into somewhat of a gunner sometimes, and that's not really his role. And he's talked about that. He's on record as saying that now after his extension, that he's talked with the Bucks and feels that he has more of a role to play on offense than he did last year. And no, what he did on offense last year was perfect. That's what he needs to do. So that concerns me. Monroe, I'm actually not concerned about. I think he's really embraced now this coming off the bench role. I think he really wants to make a push to win Sixth Man of the Year this year. I don't think that'll happen, but if that's what'll keep him motivated and playing like he did last year, great. That's a big benefit for the Bucks on the court. Dellavedova got a bad rap last year. He contributed far more than people give him credit for.
I just think we thought he was going to come in and be the starter, and that didn't end up happening because Brogdon snatched that job.
No. Yeah, I don't know. I never expected too much out of Dellavedova, and he didn't. It's not like I'm saying he had a great season, but he performed basically well for what he was paid. If he does, as Jake mentioned, come back a little bit closer to his shooting percentage, then that'll be fine. He'll be fine for his contract.
Well, yeah, I think his contract, when he signed it, we all thought, that was a pretty fair contract.
Yep. No problem.
And he underperformed from his career norms, and it's not like he had a 1-year sample size. He's had a pretty long career of executing at a certain level. So hopefully he gets back to it this year. I think there's no reason to think he can't. Just a matter of if he will.
Right, he probably can, and yeah, he was paid fairly last year. It just again goes back to the issue of, well, should we be paying fairly those type of players at this point? No, we shouldn't. With Mirza, definitely shouldn't have because of his age. But since he is under contract and we did sign him foolishly, in my opinion, we do have to deal with him being on the roster or trading him for something. I think at this point, he had LASIK surgery, and now he's wearing some protective eyewear after that. He has been shooting very well in the preseason, particularly Friday night. He looks more like the Mirza Teletovic that I saw coming off the bench for the Phoenix Suns, who set the NBA record in three-point makes coming off the bench. I believe it was 187. If he can do that with the Bucks, he still last year, even though he shot horrendously, changed the game when he was in. He spaced the floor. Defenders closed out on him even though he wasn't hitting threes at all because they just thought he probably would. That's how people play him. They'll continue to play him that way. He appears to be on track to have a good year shooting threes. That's what I'm seeing so far. That's what I expect. That will actually majorly benefit the Bucks on court. So I think we'll get a lot from Mirza, especially compared to last year.
Well, we said that last year when we talked about the free agent off signings in our podcast last season. We said, Mirza, we probably shouldn't have signed him, but at least he's a good fit. Because we had talked about past free agent signings where we said, well, we shouldn't have signed Greg Monroe, and he was a bad fit from the start. And now that's kind of changed a little bit with him embracing the sixth man role.
He's still a bad fit.
He's still a bad fit.
He does well what he does.
Exactly. We found at least a way to make use of him. Whereas Mirza, from the start when we signed him, we said, yeah, we overpaid him. We shouldn't be signing these players at this time, but at least he's a good fit. And that kind of goes to what you were saying, that he spaces the floor. And, hey, if he's Ricky Vaughn out there, performing after the LASIK surgery with the goggles on, so be it.
Let's talk about the predictions now. I mean, the Bucks. What did we win last year? Was it 40?
42. It was our first winning season since the Fear the Deer year.
Incredibly. Record-wise, where do you see this Bucks team finishing? Dan, we'll start with you.
I think you see them finishing between 46 and 50 wins.
Put a number on it.
Well, okay, I'll go 49. We're not quite going to get to that 50 threshold. The East is weaker. You saw some talent, a little bit of a talent exodus to the West.
Again.
That's
like 15 straight years there's a talent exodus to the West.
And then even some of the, the top teams in the East, Cleveland and Boston specifically, they will need a little bit of an adjustment period. They need to gel, that phrase that I hate, but that's true for them. And with Cleveland, who knows exactly when Isaiah Thomas is going to be back for them. So that'll be a little bit of a void for them to fill. So and some teams that were good in the East last year are atrocious now. Like Atlanta and Indiana are going to be pretty bad. So the Bucks can feast against their Eastern Conference opponents, and that's primarily their schedule. They play each team in the West twice, So
well, and if I recall, we actually did pretty decent against the West last year. I don't remember our exact record, but better compared to our history of going out on these West Coast trips and just getting rolled over. Staying up till 1 a.m. watching us just get our asses handed to us.
Yeah.
And I'd have to look up the record.
I don't know what it is. But
yeah.
Again, I also want to kind of have a caveat on my record. I think that, and we kind of touched on this, but I do think Thon Maker, what he does for the Bucks, is going to be very key. I don't know. Is he going to be significantly better than he was last year? I kind of touched on everybody else, and I didn't mention Thon, and he's a key to the Bucks going forward. I don't know where else we're going to get this other significant piece to put it around Giannis and Middleton.
If it's not Thon
I think
or Jabari having a miracle comeback, I don't know where we got the other piece around.
Do you guys think what do you guys think Thon Maker is going to give us, and is that a key to what your prediction is?
I'm a little worried about Thon, and actually we're going to do a segment, in this segment I should say, or a part of it, where we talk about who you think is going to be a player that disappoints, and I think my pick will be Thon. Basically, we don't know what the deal is with his age. I know what I believe in my mind based on the evidence I've seen, and it's disappointing. But he had a good rookie year considering what his role was supposed to be. He shot the 3-ball very well. One thing that I see happening with Thon is in Giannis' second year, he started to bulk up. He started to add weight, and the Bucks have asked Thon to do the same. What you saw was in Giannis' rookie year, he was shooting threes at a fairly decent clip and at a fairly high rate for somebody who wasn't supposed to be that good of a shooter. Now you start to add weight, guess what? Your shot mechanics change. I think we might have to see, or we might see a little bit of that with Thon. One thing I do like for his chances is no matter what age he is, he's got a non-stop motor. He has the desire to be great, just like Giannis does. So if
should make him serviceable.
Or if he's disappointed this year, it won't be due to lack of effort.
So how many wins? We kind of jumped ahead there. How many wins do you think?
I'm gonna go ahead and be the negative Nancy here. I think that again, every time we have expectations, the team seems to fall flat on its face. I'm gonna go ahead and slot him at 40 wins, a little bit worse than last year. I know all the points he made about the East being weaker. I'm just not sold on Jason Kidd. I think that guys that were contributors last year, like I said, Greg Monroe, his mindset is going to be all about getting that next contract. I think he's not going to be as much of an asset off the bench. So I don't know. I tend to be wrong on these things. So I mean, 2 years ago when we had signed Monroe and really, really high expectations. I think I predicted 50 wins, and I think they won like 38 or something like that.
Yeah, we could go back.
Maybe
sure.
it'll be opposites, and they'll win 55 games now because
the
I'm
internet
going
still
low.
has record of that. I know where it's at.
Yeah.
And I'll go. I've been going back and forth in my head as we were doing here. I think I'm going to go 47. Kind of a little less than Dan, but significantly more than Jake, who's clearly the pessimist today.
I'm predicting the most wins?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, well, and just off the end, what do you guys think?
Just a homer,
What do you
that's
think?
all.
Do you know what the over/under is at Vegas?
I don't
'Cause
know.
I looked it up.
I don't know what
I'm
the
going to
over-under
guess
is.
it's 44 wins.
Well, they always do a half.
Well,
so
44 and a half.
44 and a half.
Is it 44 and
No,
a half?
it
That's
is
my
not.
guess.
It's
Oh.
Vegas has it at 46 and a half.
I think that's probably right. That's probably a good over/under. And
Yeah.
I'm going over. Well, one thing I meant to say this, and Jake touched on it again, but I meant to mention this when we were talking about continuity. When in the past, when the Bucks would have expectations and then fall on their face, part of the reason was because they did well, or they started to do something well the season before, and then they said, "Oh my gosh, we have to
Sign Bobby Simmons.
right, we have to like double down on this. The Fear of the Deer year was great. Well, guess what? We need to bring in Corey Maggette
No, it was Drew Gooden first.
and Drew Gooden.
Yeah, it was Drew Gooden
Yes.
and re-signing John Salmons, and then the next year was Corey Maggette.
No, that was the same offseason.
Was it the same
But
offseason?
the
Okay.
first day of free agency, we did sign Drew Gooden
Okay.
to a multi-year
And then-
contract.
Oh, yes.
And he had only been signing 1-year contracts.
Well, he'd been on 10 teams in 10 years or something prior to that.
So that was the first day of free agency, and then we brought back. I don't know in exactly what order here, but we came to terms with John Salmons, and we traded for Corey Maggette, which was extra money that we wouldn't have had to pay because Dan Gadzarich was finally going to come off the books, and then we're like, nope, let's extend that pain. So anyway, in years
Goggle me
past,
slime.
well, even if you go back to the Eastern Conference Finals year in 2000-2001, what did we do the very next the offseason after that? We decided we're going to bring in Anthony Mason, and in order to save some money to pay for that, because we were way into the luxury tax, we were top 5 payroll at that time. Herb Cole said, fine, but you need to cut some money somewhere, so why don't you dump Scott Williams? So we did that. So we've done this a couple times where we've had expectations and then we've significantly changed the team. So the point that I'm making is that we didn't do that this year. We have expectations, but we have almost the entire same team. We've got this continuity, which is a thing.
And to me, the expectations this year, we have expectations, Lisa. It's not because of free agents. It's because Giannis has blossomed right before our eyes. And there's no reason outside of injury to think Giannis is going to regress at all. We've seen him improve every single year he's been in the league. He's gotten better. He's gotten stronger. As long as he stays healthy, Giannis is what he is at this point. And if anything, he'll just get better, because he could work on that shot. There are things to his game that he could improve, but there's no reason to think he's going to do anything worse than he did last year. So to me, I don't expect much regression from our core, because even Middleton, he got his contract extension. He was a fine player once he came back from the injury last year. Middleton is what he is. We know what to expect from Chris Middleton. It's the other guys that we don't necessarily know what's going to happen, but I think Giannis alone is enough to carry us to that, at least the 8th seed, and then can the other guys get us up to the top half where we get a home court series for once.
And a full season of Middleton, presumably, this year.
The Vegas odds, by the way, have us at the number 5 seed, so they expect us to be right there at that number 4, number 5 range as of right now.
I was going to ask too, who both your Bucks MVP and league MVP. I think we're all going to agree it's Giannis.
There's no one else even
but
close.
I mean, maybe you'll pick Giannis as your league MVP. Who do you see as your league MVP? Me, myself, I'm going to go with Kawhi Leonard in San Antonio. They are just the consistent winner. They're the New England Patriots of the NBA. And I see a lot of these stars teaming up. So I think that these guys are going to take away votes from each other, the Westbrooks, the Durants, the Currys. And without question, Kawhi is the guy in San Antonio. And I think Just he's kind of been underrated up to this point, and I think he was third in MVP voting last year.
Yes.
That this might just be his year. So what about you, Dan?
Well, I love Kawhi Leonard. I'm a huge Spurs fan. I love Greg Popovich. I've been a big Spurs fan for years and years and years. And Kawhi Leonard is great. He was my pick for MVP last year. I kind of like waffled between him and James Harden, but I think that he's got a very strong case again this year. I would like to see him win it. Well, I would like to see Giannis win it, of course. But if we're talking about a non-Bucks player,
well, you know the Bucks player.
I could. I don't think this is going to be.
If you think Sterling Brown's going to win it, I mean, go for it.
I don't think this is going to be Giannis's year to win MVP. I hope he gets there in years to come. I think this year will come down to Kawhi Leonard and Kevin Durant. I think Giannis maybe third or fourth after that.
No LeBron.
Well, no LeBron. I guess I should say
LeBron's always
LeBron
in the
right
running.
there,
Yeah.
But I don't see Westbrook or Harden being actual MVP contenders this year just because of Harden now pairing with Chris Paul, and Chris Paul is going to have the ball a lot. I think it'll be good for their team, possibly, probably. But it's
once they gel, they got to gel
once
first.
Once they gel, of course. But and Westbrook now with Paul George and Carmelo Anthony. Again, I think that the Thunder will be better than they were last year, significantly. But I don't see I don't see Westbrook repeating as MVP. Last year, Durant, what he was doing for the Warriors before he got hurt, I think he was on track to be the MVP last year. I feel very strongly about that.
I don't know if he'll ever get a fair shake, though. I think there's enough
not.
hate on him for what he did that people hold that grudge. You know, they shouldn't.
Maybe, and they might.
So is he your pick, though?
No, I am going to pick Kevin Durant this year because I think he's going to have a fully healthy season, and I think despite them maybe just taking it easy, they're so talented. I think they're going to just blow the doors off the NBA again in the regular season, and I think Kevin Durant will be the lead guy there, and he'll just have ridiculous numbers, and he'll be on the winningest team by far, and that's going to get him the MVP votes. I'd like to see Kawhi get it. I really would.
I'm also thinking Kevin Durant. Assuming all these predictions are assuming health.
Yep.
It's Kawhi Leonard to me. I hope I'd prefer him to get it to Kevin Durant, but I think that just because of all the talent around Kevin Durant in Golden State, they're going to have a better record than San Antonio. Kawhi Leonard might have comparable numbers, but the record will throw it. Even though team record shouldn't necessarily play into MVP in my mind if I was voting, but it absolutely does when they vote for that. So if I was going to say probably Kevin Durant, and I think LeBron James would be very close to me on that, just because I think with them they're bringing in new pieces. They don't have Kyrie Irving anymore. I think he's probably going to have to do more, especially early on as the team gels. We're going to keep using that word. So I would, if I'm going to pick something different than the two of you, I'd go with LeBron. But if I went with my gut, I'd probably say Kevin Durant.
I just think LeBron is going to again kind of coast through the regular season like he has.
He has
doing.
perfected how to do that.
And he's really good at that. But I mean, look, if we're talking about who's going to be the best player for the regular season and the playoffs, I'm going to say LeBron. But we're talking about MVP, which is of the regular season, and I just don't think LeBron is going to care enough to do it.
And that is a very fair point, and that's why I say my gut says Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
But yeah. So what do you think? Since we're talking Vegas odds, where do you think Giannis is on the list of just from 1 to 10? I'll say he's in the top 10 for sure.
I'll say 7.
Are we talking about MVP candidate?
MVP candidate, where they say
candidate?
His odds to win MVP.
Odds?
Where is he in the list?
Oh boy. Well, he's
and he is in the top 10.
I'm going to say he's below Kawhi, LeBron, Durant, Harden. Ooh, I'm going to say he's 6 or 7.
Okay, he is 6th. They have Westbrook at number 1, and then Kevin Durant,
They
Kawhi,
have Westbrook at number 1.
Kawhi
odds.
Leonard, LeBron James.
He did just average triple-double
I
last year.
understand.
Nothing to scoff.
Yeah, Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James, James Harden, and then Giannis at plus 850
So
is where he's
Giannis
sitting.
has better odds than Curry.
Yeah, they've got Curry at 7th.
How about that?
And then you got Anthony Davis and Paul George and
now
Chris
we're not
Paul
talking about real MVP candidates.
rounding out the top 10.
Yeah.
That's the top 10 there.
Nope.
But yeah, I'd agree that probably the top 7 are, after that, I don't know that any of them are, Anthony Davis, Chris Paul, and Paul George are
Yeah,
not
by the way,
serious.
Curry could still win MVP if he has a
sure.
ridiculous season, so that could happen. I don't see anybody other than those top 7.
Yeah, I'd agree right now that those are the only serious contenders going into the season.
All right, and lastly, real quick, as we're wrapping up here, NBA Finals, who are your 2 teams and who do you have winning? I'm going to go with, in the finals, the Golden State Warriors and the Cleveland Cavaliers, because, man, isn't it fun watching the same shit every single fucking year?
It's different.
And I think that Golden State sweeps. It's boring, but it's year
Ooh.
2 of the
Hey.
super team.
A sweep? Yeah, that'd be something. That I think probably, yes, a sweep. But yes, it will be the Warriors, and it will definitely be the Cavs. Unless, again, this is all assuming health. It's not going to be different. If LeBron's healthy and the Cavs aren't totally decimated with injury, even if they are, probably.
2 years ago, they had no Kevin Love, no Kyrie Irving. Not only did LeBron carry them to the finals,
I know.
they won the finals. So,
Well, they didn't win it that year. They lost to the Warriors.
oh, that's
that year.
right.
They
It
won
was
the following
the next year,
yeah.
yes.
But
I'm
yes,
getting my years mixed up because it's been the same
But he'll-
thing for 3 years
Yeah,
now.
but he'll take them there is kind of your point.
Absolutely.
And yes, I agree. The Cavs are a lock for the finals. The Warriors basically are a lock. The Spurs are amazingly good. I'd really like to see the Spurs play the Warriors in the finals.
I'd like to
Right?
see a healthy Kawhi. I'd like to see all these teams play each other healthy. I think you'd get more competitive series between the Spurs and the Warriors if they're healthy. But
You had it last year until Zaza took out Kawhi.
yeah, well,
The
that's
Spurs were going
Zaza.
to win that game. That series could have been drastically different. We could have had the Spurs in the finals last year.
No.
Possible.
No, stop, no.
Yeah. So you're going Golden State, Cleveland, and
Yeah, Golden State, and it's either going to be the full sweep or it's going to be the gentleman's sweep where Cavs win one game.
okay. And I'm not to be boring, but I go Golden State, Cleveland. I don't think it'll be a sweep, but I think Golden State wins it in 5 or 6 games.
The NBA, it's fantastic.
I love it.
And we'll see. 9 months from now, we'll see what happens.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for Buck Life. We appreciate you guys listening again. And again, we will be back a little bit more regularly this season. Follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, at Buck Life. And I believe might be at Buck Life Podcast. But if you start
Yeah, I
typing it in,
think the
it'll pop
Facebook
up.
is Buck Life Podcast, something like that. I mean, likely you already like us, and you can find us easily enough if you need to.
All right, well, that's going to wrap it up. Thank you, Chuck. Thank you, Dan. And we'll see you guys next time. Peace.